Let's not be confused about salvation here. This is huge. We have such limited views of salvation. Salvation is not about getting out of hell and into heaven. That's the result of salvation. Salvation is not primarily about getting our sins forgiven. That clears the way for salvation. Salvation is God coming to live in me, so it's true of him will be true of me.
Friends, sons, welcome back to the Being Sons podcast. This is turning out to be a two-part conversation with Jim Barker, a friend of mine that former attendee to one of our Being Sons father-son adventures introduced me to. And just before we enter into this, first, welcome back to the podcast, Jim.
Oh, thank you. Good to be with you, Jay.
You came into my life after I had been introduced to this paradigm that the masculine journey can be seen in a helpful way as a series of stages that we go through, beginning as an infant and then ultimately leading to being an eternal reigning son beside God in the coming kingdom. But how does one go from being a little child up to being a child in the coming kingdom, reigning and ruling with Jesus for all of eternity? What are the stages of that? And the pinnacle stage of our earthly ministry, our earthly calling, before we step over into our eternal calling, is the stage of the sage. And I have had some sages in my life, like John Eldridge and some other, authors, but I received their wisdom through a book, and to a degree, I can even watch Star Wars or The Lord of the Rings, and Gandalf can speak, incredible truth to me. But what I longed for was a life-on-life, face-to-face sage, somebody that I could actually almost melt into their presence, because I knew that I could ask them anything and that they would be a non-anxious presence, because whatever I was feeling, I was just confident they had felt that way before, and I was not going to be judged for it. I was going to be understood. And in our culture today, friends, this stage of the Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Yoda, the Gandalf, they are largely dismissed. In some places in the world, the sage is elevated to its rightful place, and we revere them and we take care of them and we surround ourselves with them, but not in this culture. Like, Jim, I know you and I have talked a little bit about the madness of the culture that we're in, and people are looking for the new thing. And the gospel and the invitation to walk with God has always been, no, the new thing is always going to let you down. It's actually the old way. And this is a scripture that I know that if you're familiar with Being Sons, you've heard many, many times, but God actually said this to his people, the nation of Israel, who was always looking for the newfangled thing, and they were always looking at the shiny, what felt like attractive ways that the people around them were living, and they thought, oh, maybe this is the path to life, and they just fell harder and harder and deeper into brokenness and sin. And in the midst of that, in his love and his affection and his pursuit of his nation Israel, he said this. He said, look, stop, stand at the crossroads, look around, ask this question: where's the good way? Where's the tried and true way? Where is the ancient way? Walk in that, and then you will find what you're looking for, rest for your souls. And, Jim, it is guys like you that are very rare. It's guys like you that I'm coming to learn, okay, I'm confused. I need to find somebody who's been here before to stop, look around, and ask, where's the good way? So, Jim, just I want to say thank you for being that for me, and then just allowing yourself to come on to this platform, which I know is new to you, and share with us. You are a sage, and we desperately are in need of wisdom like what you shared in your introduction, and I'm sure wherever we go in the next few minutes, it's something that we really need to hear.
That's kind of a heavy burden to bear.
Well,
I
it
said,
is.
because I feel like I'm so much a learner.
Well, I'm so sorry. Sorry to put that burden on you, but we're so desperately in need of them that I have to assign that to you, whether you like it or not. Following up on our last conversation, friends, if you haven't listened to that first part, you're going to appreciate this second part a whole lot more if you go back and listen to Jim share some gold from his story. So in the last conversation, there were a few things that you said, many things that really stood out. One of them is that you had to go into the schoolhouse of love, that at some point you had to move out of your intellectual understanding of the gospel, which had been great.
Absolutely great.
For a while.
Yeah.
For a while. But that didn't cut it. At some point, you had to go from being just simply a Christian, where God was seeking the attention, to being curious about what God's really like. And through that, he began to reveal himself as a loving father who was not the one seeking attention, not the one seeking for us to serve him, but instead modeling servanthood to us. And that changed your life. And then you began to talk about how what you knew that I'm putting some words in your mouth, but you knew that what was truly going to transform you and what you were actually being invited into was not the collection of knowledge, but it was actually a transformation of your heart by the love of God, so that you became aware not only in your feelings, but just in the deep, deep knowing in your spirit that you are the recipient of God's love and you are the instrument through which God gives love to others. And I crave that. I do feel to a degree that God has absolutely been leading me through that transformation, Jim.
Yeah, all of us, really. Yeah.
And I'm so deeply grateful for it. But I realize more and more that what my wife needs is for more of that transformation in me. What my daughter needs is more of that in me. What my 20-year-old son needs is more of that in me. And to whatever degree that I get to sit around and talk with other men, what they need is more love in me. So how do we get there, Jim?
I think it's really important for us to first of all define our terms, because this word love means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. As you know, in the Greek language, there were 4 different words for love, right? And so, but what is the nature of this love that we were talking about? This love called agape love. And I think what we learn about love is best learned as we contemplate the depth of the cross itself. On the cross, here we see the truth about God the Father through God the Son. Unvarnished truth. The truth about the true nature of God at the source of all that there is. And what we learn about love, what that means on the cross, is that God's love is unconditional self-giving for the well-being of another, no matter the cost of comfort or convenience or time or resources or effort or even one's own personal safety, even one's own life. Greater love has no one than this, Jesus said, that one lays down his life for his friends. Let's not be confused about love. This is not an easy ethic. This is the most difficult ethic there is to live. to live lives of unconditional self-giving for the well-being of others, no matter the cost of comfort, convenience, time, resources, effort, or even one's own personal safety. This is what love is. This Jesus reveals to us on the cross. Jesus in John 17 said this, praying to his Father. This is big. He says, Father, the hour is come. What hour? The hour towards which thousands of years of human history has been pointing. Redemptive history. The hour of redemption has come. Father, glorify your Son, that the Son may glorify you. Loose translation, Father, reveal to the world the truth about your Son and what I am all about, that I might reveal the truth about you, Father, and what you're all about. And the cross reveals the meaning of life. And life as it's meant to be lived. What is the meaning of life? It is self-giving for the well-being of others as an expression of our relationship with the self-giving God who has come to live in us. So let's ought to be clear about our terms before we get off here. That doesn't have much to do with feelings there. This has to do with something deeper. The deepest thing there is. It is the essence of God's true nature. So C.S. Lewis put it this way. This is pretty powerful. God did not create us that we may love him, though we were created for that too. No, we were created that he may love us, to have someone to love and give himself to. And he does so, already foreseeing the buzzing cloud of flies about the blood-soaked body. The flayed open back against an uneven stake. The nails driven through the mesial nerves of the hands and of the feet. The repeated attempts to hitch the body up one more time, just to catch another breath. This is love himself, the creator of all the loves. That is the love of God. And boy, when we see him this way, how can we help but kneel down and worship this self-giving God? That's the beginning. That makes sense, Jay? Yeah, you see where we're going with this? So, and now, this passage, I think this passage could probably be preached on for 3 weeks. It's just 2 verses long. And it says, Paul writes in Ephesians chapter 5, therefore, my beloved, be imitators of God as his beloved children, and live lives of love. What kind of love? The same kind of love with which Christ loved you, who gave himself up for us as an offering and a sacrifice for our well-being, and it was a fragrant aroma of self-giving. Be imitators of God the Father as his beloved children. That is our calling. Now, I believe that ever since we're born, we've just entered what might be called the university of life. And in the university of life, love is the central lesson. And we begin at birth, and it's all about me. Crying, it's all about me. As we move into young children, we begin to learn it's not all about me. There's other people too. And we're in elementary schools. And then we move out of being a kid into adolescence, and we move into high school. And here we're learning more and more about it's not all about me. It's about other people. And we move out of high school into do our bachelor's. And in our bachelor's, this is where we become independent people. And we're in the schoolhouse of learning to love. We move into marriage, and this is where God does his master's works in our life. Now, it's not just about me. No, I am united to another in love, and I am here to love this other to health and well-being and joy and blessing. And then the PhD program, we have kids. Marriage is a two-way street. With the kids, it's a one-way street. It's all love going out and it ain't coming back till way later, right? And so I think we're all in the university of life when it comes to the central lesson, which is love. And so anyway, we're all in process that way, I think.
Mm-hmm. So we are in process. So for you, could you take us back through your story and help us see how you learned to move into and operate out of agape? And, one of the major questions that I'm just revealing to you, honestly, is this agape love. I mean, there are times when I wonder, is this even really possible for a human, or is this only God? And I have looked into this, and I know that Peter denied Jesus 3 times, and the restoration of Peter around the campfire with the fish. Jesus asks those very penetrating but healing questions to invite him back into reconciled fellowship with him. Not that anything was broken with Jesus. It's just that Peter needed to go through it. Do you agape me? Do you agape me?
Actually, Jesus uses a different word.
Okay.
No, he does. No, he uses agape me, but Peter uses a different word in reply.
Okay.
And that is really meaningful, by the way.
Okay. Share with us a little bit about that.
So I spoke in our last session about the change of the grammar of love, we might call it. The old covenant, the grammar of love, it was me is the source of the love, loving God. Me is the source of the love, loving others. And that's why it could never work, because I am not a very good source, as it turns out.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the scribe came to Jesus to ask him another trap question to try to trick him into saying something for which they could accuse him. What's the greatest commandment? Well, you, as the source, love God and love your neighbor. How's that working out for you? In a sense, he came to set a big bear trap for Jesus and stepped into his own trap. And then Jesus comes along and says, this is how I've lived. As the Father's loved me, living in me, motivating me, and empowering me to love, I have loved you. Now, as I live in you, motivating you and empowering you to love one another. Change the grammar. So, Peter, this is a big one. So Peter, in the upper room, Jesus says, all you guys are all going to flee. You're all going to desert me. Peter says, not me. These other guys might, these lightweights, but not me. I will, if I need to, I will lay down my life for you. Jesus says, really? I love you so much, Jesus, I will lay down my life for you. Peter, you are not going to make it till dawn before you deny me 3 times. With you willing it, because it ain't in you. So Peter does fail in his love, and he weeps. He goes away weeping bitterly. And then we come to the scene on the Sea of Galilee, right? The guys are out there fishing, and Jesus shows up on the shore. You know the whole story. Peter flings himself to the water to eat breakfast, and afterwards, Jesus and Peter take aside by themselves. And Jesus says, Peter, do you agape love me more than these? In other words, Peter, do you have an unconditional self-giving love for me no matter what? And Peter says, well, you know, Lord, I phileo love you. You know I have a fond affection for you. Peter's not going to that place of agape. He ain't going there. He has learned his lesson. And then Jesus says, good, Peter, you've got it. Feed my sheep. The second time, Peter, do you agape love me? This unconditional self-giving love, no matter what. He won't go there. He says, you know, Lord, I'm your friend. I phileo love you. You know I'm your friend, and I have an affection for you. Good, Peter. Now you can go tend to my lambs. You've learned it. And the third time, Jesus says, Peter, do you phileo love me? Are you my friend? Yes, Lord. I am. Peter learned the lesson of love. It is not about him loving Jesus. It's about Jesus' love for him. There's a little poem that says this well. The old command bids me agape love for my fellow man and for God above. My love barren heart cries out futility. Agape love is not in me. Christ's new command bids me agape love for my fellow man from God above. My love rich heart rejoices free, for love himself lives in me. So when we go to this impossibility of love, Jesus said it. He says, look, I'm the vine, you're the branches. If you abide in me and I in you, your life is going to bear the fruit of what? Love. Apart from me, can't do it. Can't do it. So Jesus calls us into what? An abiding relationship with him. What does that even mean? That means, this is really big. We cultivate the spiritual habit, the spiritual reflex of living in the all things of life, living present to the living Christ living in me and responsive to him. And when I do that, my life will bear the fruit of that relationship, the primary one of which is this love that will nourish the lives of everybody that I know. Now, this is a cultivated way of life. It doesn't come to us natural at all.
Mm-hmm.
At all.
So could you take us back to a moment or a few moments where you wrestled with that reality that
Sure.
you wanted to move from phileo into agape, and God met you and supernaturally.
Right. Yeah. So number one, when I saw the true nature of the God who lives in me, and by the way, let's not be confused about salvation here. This is huge. We have such limited views of salvation. Salvation is not about getting out of hell and into heaven. That's the result of salvation. Salvation is not primarily about getting our sins forgiven. That clears the way for salvation. Salvation is God coming to live in me, so what's true of him will be true of me as I live in constant communion with him. That's salvation. What is sanctification? Sanctification is that which is true of God becoming truer and truer and truer in me, and especially as I relate to other people. So back to the time, right? God began to teach me his nature truly living in me, calling me to live as he lives, as he loves me, loving others. Sir, there's going to be challenges here. One of those happens in one of love's truest expressions, and that is the expression of forgiveness. To forgive those who have hurt us, who have betrayed us, to forgive those who are forgiveness is an expression of the nature of God's love. So God called me into a life of forgiveness until forgiveness, I would hope, becomes just a disposition of my God-indwelt soul for other people. So forgiveness. And then the other thing about love is it's like anything else. If you want to experience something, to know it, you have to do it. There's no other way around this. If someone could study all about the biomechanics of riding a bicycle and know it perfectly, but you don't know what riding a bicycle is like till you get on the thing. Now you've experienced riding. This is the type of knowing that the Bible talks about when we talk about knowing God. But people could go, look, I can study all the dynamics and know all about what skydiving's like. I can watch it and see it, but you don't know skydiving. Not until you jump out of the airplane and trust the parachute to open. Now you know it, right? And love is like this. We experience love as we join God in his love and love others, especially difficult people. Now we experience God. John said this. We have come to know by experience the love that God has for us, and we believe it. God is love, and the one who lives loving is the one who lives experiencing God. So how do we know it? By joining God in his love for another person and giving it to them.
Can you go back and share with us a moment where you really experienced his agape love for you, and there was a revelation?
I don't know that I can point to a moment, Jerry. For me, this just came for me as here's how it came to me. It came to me through what I think Paul probably preeminently prayed above all other prayers that he prayed for himself and for churches. He said this: I pray that God will give to you a spirit and of revelation of the true knowledge of himself. That God did in my life. He gave me a spirit of wisdom and of revelation of his true nature that I just talked about. This self-giving God who is bottomlessly unselfish and completely self-giving. God gave me that revelation, and I can't point to a point in time, but it was a reality that I came to know. And then to begin to learn as a way of life with God.
So today in your life, what do you do that helps you feel that union and partnership with God, where his love is coming in you and is coming to the world through you?
I'm not so concerned with the result, feeling God and his love pouring out of me for others. I think that's a result of something else. So I focus more on what's before that. And that is simply learning the spiritual reflex of living present to and responsive to Christ living in me. If I do that, the love flows. In sports, golf being my profession, but this is true in all other sports too. The worst thing that an athlete can do when they're in competition is focus on an outcome. Outcome focus is just deadly. A result focus. If you listen to, like the players on the PGA Tour, you just hear this all the time. How'd you make it through there? Well, I stayed in the process. Focusing on the process, the result takes care of itself. The minute we go to result thinking, now we're worried, is it going to happen or is it not going to happen? We try to make it happen. Jesus says, focus on the process and the result will happen. Abide in me and I in you and your life will bear fruit. That's the result. You see what I mean? Now, this is actually a huge subject that we are talking about. And that subject is, what does our relationship with God actually consist of? How does it actually work? This is a big subject today. Is it primarily about God said it and I'll do it? Trying my best to do my best of what God asked me to do? Is that what it's about? Is God a rule giver and I'm a rule keeper? Is that what it is? No, that's not what it is. So how does a relationship with God work? I believe that what God wants more than anything with us is to live a shared life with us. We, coming to the end of ourselves, and by true faith, we abandon ourselves to the living God, saying, come. And he does. And God says, I come to live a shared life. I want to share the rich fullness of my divine life with you and all that means. And I've come to share your human experience with you. So at any time we could ask, what am I now experiencing of you, Lord? And what kind of a human experience am I giving to you? That's pretty powerful when you think about that. And what are others experiencing when with us? That's a big question. And the whole point of the thing, in fact, I kind of think in most of our reading and teaching and listening, we leave two words off, and we tend to end up living self-absorbed lives. And those two words are for others. For others. Lord, I come to abide in you, abiding in me. So our life influences others. Even Jesus in his prayer in John 17 said, for their sakes, Father, for their sakes, I give myself completely to you, that they might be completely yours. Jesus was the most for others life ever lived. And he calls us, God, I wake up here and I want to read your word and study your word. Why? That my life might be a truth-rich life for others. Father, I feel anxious and I would like to have your peace for others. Father, would you grant me a spirit of wisdom for others? Father, I come to abide in your love for others. God says, I'm in it for you, for others. And now, Jim, will you give yourself to me for others? And this is the most beautiful way of life that can be lived, I think. So how do we live this way of life? The person who teaches us about the way of life, we are called to live with God. And I don't think I've ever heard a sermon or a sermon series. Should be a sermon series. I've never heard it preached. But Jesus said it himself. This is one of the things he showed me that morning that I talked about last week. I'm reading through there, and I see Jesus say six things that became life-defining for me. He tells us in the Gospel of John how he himself, as a man, lived in relationship with the Father that made him the Son of God that he was for us. He says, I'm just going to summarize these. 5 times he says, I do nothing on my own initiative. I do nothing on my own independently of my Father. What is he saying? All of life that comes to me through my 5 physical senses, I defer to the Spirit of my Father living in me. And everything that's going on in me, my desires of my heart, mind, my thoughts, I defer to the Spirit of my Father. He says, I do nothing on my own independently of my Father. I look to my Father. I listen to my Father. I live with a yielded will and willing response to my Father. I'm taught by my Father. The Father teaches me what to say and how to say it, where to go and what to do and when to go there. The Father living in me does his works. And just as the Father's loved me, I have loved you. Abide in my love and love others as I have loved you. There, Jesus gives us the divine template for living our lives as sons of God in relationship with the truest Son himself.
So, Jim, how does that translate into your dialogue as you walk with God every day? How do you, as a son, approach your days, approach your problems, approach your cares and your concerns?
First of all, in living this shared life with God, we experiencing God, God experiencing us, others experiencing God when with us. And the key word there is us. What I've learned is most of us live in the awful, impotent power of the singular. I, me, my, and mine. And I've learned that Jesus did not do that. I've learned to live in the power of the plural. We, let's, us, our, together. So when I wake up in the morning, Father, thank you for your abiding presence. I look forward to our day together. All that we will do, all the people we will meet, and then go into the day living in the plural. Well, Father, let's go spend some time in your word together. Father, it's time to go to work. Let's give others our best today. Father, I'm getting ready to meet with this man or to facilitate this group. Father, fill my thoughts with yours. Fill my desires with yours, so others experience the best that we have to offer to them. To live life in the plural changes everything. One of the things I hate to do, I hate doing the yard. I just don't like it. But if I go, Father, let's go do the yard together and talk as we do, that changes the whole experience. I got a picture sitting right here on my desk. It's my beautiful wife, Julie. She's standing waist deep in the water at the coast. She's got a fishing rod in one hand and a stringer of 3 trout in the other. And one of her friends said, Julie, I didn't know you liked to fish. She says, well, I just kind of like being with Jim. So even the unpleasant things in life, it's together. It changes everything.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I learned from Jesus was, this is a cool one. So Jesus in John chapter 17, he is on a rant. He's denouncing the cities of Chorazin, Bethsaida, and Capernaum. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it says this. At that time, Jesus answered and said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you chose to hide these things from the wise and intelligent and reveal them to babes. Yes, Father, it was well-pleasing in your sight. Out of nowhere, Jesus realized the words he was speaking were the thoughts of the Father coming out his mouth. And with a simple, yes, Father, he acknowledged his Father. So I learned to go through life all my days saying, yes, Father. Yes, Father. Yes, Father. When Eve shows up and hard stopping Eve, yes, Father. Yes, Father. Thank you for Eve. You created her beautiful. Thank you. And now I'd like to pray for her. Yes, Father, in the all things of life. By saying yes, Father, what are we doing? We're including God in the everything in our life. So those are a couple of ways that I practically do that, Jay. And yeah, go ahead.
The invitation into we.
It's an invitation into we. That's right.
Really, there's no option. That is the secret.
It is. I think it is.
And I agree with you fully, 100%. And I thank you for bringing even more clarity into that passage of Scripture, Matthew 11:25 through 29, one of my absolute favorites. The prequel to Jesus saying, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and come. Like, we all want that, but the secret to that is buried in what you just mentioned, is that he's actually hearkening back to the garden and the way that he made humanity to live.
Yeah.
You've got the option to do the we life where God's in charge. He drives the truck and you get to sit shotgun.
Yeah.
And you just get to go on the adventure. Or there's the fear-based, get-it-right life apart from God. And the wise and the learned collect knowledge, but they don't trust. And then you've got the child who's not as concerned about the gathering of knowledge. It's just what they're concerned about is protecting and maintaining union with the Father, because they understand that's where the wisdom, that's the secret right there. I wonder how many times Jesus had that revelation over the course of his life, like as a human, to be invited into that shocking revelation. Oh, this is what it feels like to be human united with you, just the rescue over and over and over again. Jesus was probably the most rescued person or revealed, had the Father's rescue of him revealed and understood more than any other human being. So if he's the forerunner of our faith, then what we're being invited into is exactly what you've said, is just to be curious about every moment. And what are you saying, and how are we going to do this in a way that I cannot do it on my own? So well articulated. I remember the first time you shared that with me, and it has transformed the way that I approach God and the language that I use with him. We were at Bill Miller's, and I was drinking an unsweet tea, and you said that, and I thought, yeah, that's the secret right there. Thank you. Jim, this has been awesome. Thank you for this. I would love to have another conversation with you in the future. I've got just a whole wealth of questions to ask you, and I just appreciate the time that you have put in over the years to understanding things like the cross, to seeking, just to being present with the questions that are coming up in you, and then giving God time.
Questions are the big thing.
Yeah. Henry Nouwen said, answers before questions do damage to the soul. And what we're able to witness in listening to you, Jim, is that you've, been present to the question. You've not been intimidated by the question, but you've come to a place where you understand that being present with the question, asking the question, then being patient for the answer, but trusting, has led you to have this ability to just speak out of your heart. Like, friends, he's not reading notes. Like he's quoting scripture. He's quoting poetry because it's a part of you. And I love this about you, Jim. So thank you, friends. I know that you've been probably encouraged and disrupted like I have. And what a wonderful place to be. I think the goal of sages like Jesus is to ask a question and for us to go off and scratch our heads and come back with 3 more questions in response to that.
That's right.
So, Jim, any last thoughts or encouragements, knowing that you're probably speaking to, men in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, who are curious about their journey as sons?
Accept God's invitation into living a shared life with Him. Change the language from the singular to the plural. It just makes all the difference. After all, who would ever say, "Well, Father, things are not working out right now. We better make something happen"? We'll never do that, right? Father, why don't we enjoy a few lustful thoughts about that woman? Well, we'd never do that. Not in the power of we wouldn't. Right? You see what I mean? So accept God's invitation into a plural way of life. And enjoy the living God living in you. And pray, may what is true of you living in me become true of me, beginning in my thoughts, desires, and motives. That's where the real work is done.
Yeah, that's transformative. As you share just something as simple and universal as a lustful thought.
Yeah, universal.
Right, because you're only going to have you're only going to entertain a lustful thought in the I, in the singular. You invite God into that.
Evaporates. And then pray for Eve.
And pray.
You can't lust for her and pray for her at the same time. You just can't do it. They're mutually exclusive things. Right?
Jim, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And just every time, always enjoy time with you. So I'm sure we'll get coffee again soon. And
I'd like that, Jay.
The next round of conversations that we might be able to share.
I'd love that.
Okay. Well, friends, sons, thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to thank you for being curious, that you would invest 30, 40 minutes to being curious about what life could look like in deeper union with God, not as a member of a committee or a club, not as a servant, but as a co-laborer with God, who's sharing a joint enterprise where you know that God is releasing the best that you can, more than you can actually receive in this life. And I'm curious about that too. I'm so encouraged and so thankful to have a tribe, a brotherhood of men like you who are being curious together. It's the rescue. We're not meant to do this on our own. And I'm thankful for the different ages and stages that God brings together, putting us in families. So yeah, this brotherhood requires men like Jim, and it requires kids like, the 9-year-old sons that come along on some of our adventures. The father needs the son just like the son needs the father. And that is, it's a rescue to begin believing that. So anyway, friends, thank you so much for being here for the Being Sons podcast. We will talk to you again next time.